Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. I am here joined by Sasha Hodler. She is a tax attorney, I assume. Is that what's your exact kind of attorney degree, I guess, in?
Sure. So I'm a crypto attorney. Oh, sorry, a little technical difficulty there. I don't specialize in taxes, but
Gotcha.
I know a little bit about them. You know, enough hopefully not to be too dangerous. But yeah, I mostly have worked with clients doing the compliance side of things, like the money transmission regulations, following the Bank Secrecy Act, and fundraising through Reg D offerings. That's kind of my niche area in the crypto law. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how did you get into crypto law? Because I didn't even know. I guess that was that was like an official thing.
Well, I always was working in the market. So I kind of grew up in the banking industry, and I was working for a mutual fund company and through 2008, and, saw how, everything that happened with the economy and stuff, and became a little disenfranchised with all the printing, with the quantitative easing that was taking place. And I signed up for law school, and I moved from Canada to Florida. And while I was in Florida, there was a little challenge getting money between the Canadian bank and the US bank for my student loans. And so I thought Bitcoin might work well for that, to move it, from one account to the other. But the infrastructure was not there yet. But it really got me interested. And I started working for a Bitcoin ATM company while I was
Okay.
there. And that kind of opened me up to the whole wide world of crypto regulation.
Yeah, the Bitcoin ATM thing is very interesting to me. I just did a video. I used one the other day for the first time.
I
Um,
watched that video. Yeah, it
yeah,
was good.
yeah, it's just so crazy. Like I thought, the advantage to use an ATM was to me, it either had to be one of two things: either no KYC or lower fees. And the one I used didn't have either. So, um, but it was definitely an interesting experience. So, since you have a little bit of experience with the ATMs, what's your advice on someone wanting to use those?
Um, well, it's another on or off ramp. You end up paying quite a bit of fees with Coinbase, and I guess the main advantage of the ATM is that you can keep your private keys, so you don't have to give your Bitcoin over to another
Oh, that's a good
exchange.
point.
You can hold it yourself. So I think that's the main advantage of the ATMs. But yeah, there's no way to do it. I mean, there is technically a way to do it without KYCing, but the ATM company would face a lot of risk, criminal risk, by doing that, because they would be out of line with the requirements of the Bank Secrecy Act.
Yeah. So you're saying that if I want to go launder money, it's harder than just putting money in an ATM.
Yeah. Yeah. Although they're out there, the ones that don't KYC you, they are out there. They're just harder to find.
Okay. So you talked about how you got into this. What are you doing now in terms of in the space, and where can people find you if they want to find? I think you have a podcast, correct?
I do. Yeah. I have a little podcast called the Hodlcast. I just put out, well, I'm in the process of trying to upload this predictions podcast for 2019, but I'm on SoundCloud and YouTube, Sasha Hodler, and I have a little Facebook page, and my law firm is called DLT Law Group. And that's the main way to find me. You can find me through that website or my own website, sashahodler.com.
Okay. So I guess really let's one thing I want to delve into is what do you think is the most misunderstood thing when it comes to like crypto taxes or crypto business regulation? What do you think is the most misunderstood aspect?
Well, from the tax side, I think a lot of people thought that they could do like that, just trading. The only taxable event was in from, or when you went from fiat to crypto.
Right.
And then everything you did in the crypto universe was all tax free. And we've learned is not actually the case. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing. And we haven't really seen a lot of enforcement actions on the tax side, but I think they'll probably be coming. I believe it's a 7-year window that the IRS has to go back on this stuff. And I've seen some charts that show how much percent each area of the government is spending on crypto related, enforcement or, whatever they're spending on. And the IRS is 38%, as like the CFTC and the SEC was only around 2%. The FBI and the DEA took a big part, in FinCEN too, but the IRS was the #1 spender with 38%. So that kind of signals that they're certainly watching this.
Yeah, I guess I've kind of always been under the impression with that, if they're going to start going after people, it's probably going to be, kind of like it is in the regular tax world. Like if your income's over $1 million a year, you have a much larger chance of being audited. I think probably with crypto, if you're showing a ton of money going into Coinbase or coming out of Coinbase, you'll probably be higher on their list. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we saw last year, everyone gave Coinbase such a hard time, but I thought they did a nice job, fighting against that audit that they got from the IRS. They said, no, we're not providing you everyone's information. It would have been so easy for Coinbase just to turn over every record that the IRS requested of them, and they didn't. They made them go through court, and that was expensive for Coinbase. And then they kept the community abreast of what happened with it by making it a public record. And now we knew, okay, the IRS, like that was, I think, the big signal of, okay, the IRS is here. And probably every other exchange just was asked the same questions and gave their information over without a fight.
Well, it's kind of like just a tsunami is coming, like there's a big wave that's going to come, that's going to hit. And we've, with ICOs just recently over the last couple of months, we've seen those being targeted by, the SEC and lawsuits and things like that. And I think probably the tax situation is the same thing. Like everybody's kind of just been sitting on their laurels because nothing's really been moving forward. But like you talked about, they've been putting a lot of, I guess, research into what the best way to go about all this is. So I think once it hits, it's probably going to hit big, and we're going to probably see big names of people that are getting in trouble for, is it tax evasion? Would that technically be what it would be if you don't report your gains? Or any? Mm-hmm. So can you just talk to us a little bit about like the gains versus the losses? Like the reason why a lot of people are in trouble is because last year they made a ton of money, right? They, may not have reported, may not have finished their taxes, whatever. But then this year they've lost all that money. I read a story on Reddit about a guy who he started with $5,000 and he rode that $5,000 all the way up to $800,000 in December. And now he's down to only $100,000 again, but he owes $400,000 in taxes for last year. So is that like kind of a common situation that you've heard people in, or, like, can you understand why, like, why people are in such trouble right now because of the losses versus the gains?
Yeah. To be honest, when I read that Reddit story myself, I thought it might have been an undercover agent writing it to see what everyone responds. Maybe, I've got my tinfoil hat
I like
on,
that.
I just thought the language on there was really, who would write that about themselves? Like way that they talked about, oh, I'm such an idiot that I ruined my whole life trading crypto. And just the way that it was worded struck me as really odd. But anyway, who knows, right? And
it's funny, the exact one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I read it.
Yeah.
But it's a very true scenario. It's very difficult because a lot of people that got into this early did not keep records of what their cost basis are. And a lot of the exchanges they might have used no longer exist, or they just don't know what they purchased their Bitcoin for. And then when you go to sell it, every single coffee purchase is supposed to be a taxable event. That's you have your cost basis. And if you hold it over a year, then you're in the capital gains tax rate. If you held it less than a year, then it just has to be added to your income tax. So if you have huge gains from 2017 and then huge losses in 2018, oh, there's my dad in the background. I'm home for Christmas in Antigonish, Canada. They have a game of bridge behind me. but yeah, so it's certainly possible to be in that terrible situation, and especially like Ethereum. Even myself, like I got paid in Ethereum by a couple of clients, and the amount that I should record as income, like say I got $2,000 from someone worth of Ethereum in March, I would be supposed to claim 35 or whatever percent of income. Well, that amount is more than what the Ethereum, I didn't sell it, so I'm still, holding that bag, and the tax bill on that is greater than what I have in my wallet right now for the whole payment. So it's a mess, and I think that we need a better, the existing tax laws don't, they make it pretty hard, because Bitcoin isn't it's not a stock and it's not a currency. And if it was taxed as currency, like, the dollar that has the full faith and backing of the US government, then we wouldn't have to pay tax on a coffee transaction.
Right.
And you can't buy coffee with stocks. So like, Bitcoin is two different things, multiple things. And we're trying to squeeze it into these existing situations that don't really work for it. And I think that the only thing that makes sense for the tax situation that a lot of people are in, like that, if that Reddit post is real, like that individual, would be something like starting fresh from 2019 and give us some fair guidance and tell people really clearly, if you don't follow this, you're going to be in trouble. But we're going to turn a blind eye on what you did the last couple years, because we didn't give you enough guidance. But I don't think that's not the real situation we're in. That would be the ideal world of what to do. But the real situation we're in is that if you were using your Bitcoin on Coinbase or any other exchange, you should, it is property, and you can't do the like kind of exchange. So you've got to go back through and figure out what you bought it for and what you sold it for, and figure out when you did it and what your gains or losses are, and report it. And even if you don't have the money to pay it, you can set up a payment plan or something like that. I think that the main thing they want to see is people trying to pay.
Yeah. So that leads me into something I wanted to ask you about. I'm assuming probably you've heard of this, the Token Taxonomy Act.
Yeah, is that the one where they put is it the one by Coin Center that put the crypto tax fairness kind of thing?
No, this is it was a bill that was put in front of Congress, or is going to be put in front of Congress by one Republican and one Democratic either congressman or senator, I think congressman, to where what they're trying to do is make it basically remove the SEC's definition. Let me rephrase that. They're going to try to remove crypto from the SEC definition and make it its own thing. And then they're also going to want to wipe out the capital gains tax on crypto to crypto trades.
Okay, yeah, I did see that bill. I haven't had a chance to read through it, but did you see the same person that put that bill forward, put forward a bill to make an ICO called WallCoin to fund Trump's wall? So that bill seemed a little ridiculous, which makes me think the other two bills that he put forward might be likewise far-fetched.
Well, but, I certainly hope we can, regardless of WallCoin, that's hilarious. But I certainly hope that there is something we can do to remove the SEC jurisdiction over crypto, because crypto is its own thing. You said it best. It doesn't fit into our traditional idea of money. It doesn't fit into the traditional, stock market assets and things like that. So we really need something, to come in and break it so it's its own separate thing. I think eventually we'll have a crypto commission. We'll have something that's all that they do, because that makes sense. It is, number one, it's ridiculous for the government to want to take a percentage of my crypto to crypto trades. That's insane to me. That doesn't even make any sense. And second of all, how in the world will they ever legislate that? Even if the IRS is hot on your trail, like, I could be wrong, but I don't think you have to let them into your Binance account, correct?
The IRS has pretty wide-reaching power. If they request it, like they subpoena it, it depends if Binance would give them that information or you give them. And it's crypto is funny because it's pseudo anonymous. So what the IRS can see with their chain analysis and stuff like that, they can certainly tax. But there's a big chunk of the crypto world that is still not viewable with chain analysis if someone has taken a lot of care to use companies that don't require KYC. Right. And so for those type of transactions, I think it would be pretty hard for them to enforce tax on it. But if you're there trading from Coinbase directly to your Binance wallet, then that's a clear link. They know who you are on Coinbase. So unless you have a good reason for why you're giving money to someone else on Binance, they can make the assumption that that's you that is moving to there.
Would they know by the address that it's Binance?
That I'm not sure.
Yeah, because Binance doesn't require KYC at this point. It's an option. You can verify if you want to, but I don't, because I've tried to look this up before. I tried to figure out if an address was linked to Binance or to an exchange. And I went through this whole long process of trying to basically build a spider web of addresses to figure out if I could pinpoint it, and I couldn't. So obviously they're probably smarter than me, I would assume, in some things anyways. But
I think chain analysis, I think they can tell where it's going, like what exchange it's gone to. Because that exchange, when that wallet was, I don't know. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth saying something wrong technically, but my hunch or, I think that they do know what, because how do they know what wallets were on the Silk Road unless they already have identified that and just made a list that blacklists them? But I think they have a pretty good idea of what wallets are what.
And I think that's where it gets kind of back to my original point about how much work it's going to be for the IRS to do this. And it goes back to the point of, in my opinion, you're going to have had some serious money for them to go through all this process, because it is not going to be easy. And the people that have the bigger amounts, they've probably taken even more care to try to stay anonymous. So I don't know. It just seems like a nightmare for them to try to do all this. And not that our country is afraid of wasting money by any stretch of the imagination, because it's probably what we do best. But, it sounds like a huge waste of money. And what my hope is that over the next 1 to 2 years, we're going to get some kind of regulation, some kind of crypto commission, something to come in and is going to make this a much less complicated process. Like, I understand if you put money into Coinbase and then you withdraw money from Coinbase and they can obviously see that you gained from that, then I understand paying taxes on that. I get it. But when you get through trying to track 2,500 trades by a person, and so you have to report your gains, right, on crypto to crypto trades. But can you offset those with your losses on crypto to crypto trades as well?
Yeah, you can offset $3,000 worth of a loss on short term. On the long term gains, I think it just goes, whatever your actual loss is versus your actual gain. But on the short term, you get a $3,000 a year. But if you had a $20,000 loss, you can carry the extra forward for other years.
Oh, wow.
But that would come directly off your income.
But there's no maximum amount if you make gains.
Yeah, no. All your gains.
So you can make a ton of gains and pay taxes on it, but if you hit a loss, you can only count 3,000 of it.
Yeah.
That's insane. That to me, that just blows my mind. Yeah, and by short term, you mean like over under a year.
You held it. Yeah, like any of your day trading stuff like that. And then there's also a difference of how they look at it. You have last in, first out, or specific identification. So that's what coin you're going to choose for your gain. Like, is it the first Bitcoin you ever bought that you're selling when you make the first sale, or is it the last Bitcoin you bought that you're selling? So, or do you specifically choose which one you're selling? And they haven't come out with guidance saying what one we can or can't use. They like first in, first out. That's the most simple one. But corporate accountants are allowed to use specific identification. And until they tell us you can't use it, that one is going to create the least tax bill usually, because you can find your most expensive Bitcoin, like match it to, so there's the least difference in there. But but it's just, if someone did a lot of active day trading, it's just a nightmare. Like it's really difficult to figure that out. And all of the tax software that has been built out there, to my knowledge anyway, is not very sophisticated in terms of, like, if you're working with the stock market and you have one Apple stock that you switch from one stock brokerage to another one, you don't have a taxable event there. You did a transfer. You still own your Apple stock. But if you move from Coinbase to Binance and you're still holding your Bitcoin, you just move it from one exchange to another. Coinbase counts that as a sale. Binance counts it as a buy. Well, I don't know what Binance doesn't count it as anything, as far as I know, but the tax software will count it as a buy there.
That's insane.
A taxable event. So it's too, we're in too much of a mess for, I think, for the IRS to realistically expect people to be able to actually calculate all this, especially if you're using it to buy things ever. Like if you're, to calculate that gain every time, like what are you supposed to have a spreadsheet there and just, write it all down?
It's unrealistic. I mean,
it is.
That's the long and the short of it. It's unrealistic. They can't possibly expect somebody who is an active trader or spends it to.
If you're an active trader on the stock market, you get a 1099 at the end of the year that tells you exactly what you did, and that's all you need to know. This expecting us to calculate it, and some of the people trading crypto are not sophisticated traders. Some of them are under 18 and don't even have to pay tax. Like it's, but they shouldn't be allowed to be trading, but we know they are. So it's all.
Ooh, I just need to switch everything to my son's name.
That could get him in trouble for, lying when he opened his Coinbase account or something like that.
Well, he can't even talk, so.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. So, well, Chris, so what do you kind of see? We got a lot of questions here. Just real quick, what do you kind of see the future of all this being? And then after, what do you see the future of crypto and tax and, how the IRS works into it and regulation, just general prediction about the future about this. And then we'll jump in and start getting to some of these questions.
Okay. Well, I think two things are going to happen. And like predictions are really hard in crypto because it all changes so fast. But I think the regular like Coinbase type things there will be enforcement actions coming like we saw with the SEC, and people will start just paying taxes and keeping track of it, and the tax software will improve and the government will be happy because they're collecting a piece of the pie. And I think at the same time, the whole Bitcoin community is going to build more and more privacy software that helps people operate without having to participate with KYC exchanges. So there'll be two types of Bitcoin users: the libertarians that believe taxation is theft, and they'll be using mixers and different types of protocol that will really keep their privacy secure. And then there'll be regular corporate side of users that will just comply with the existing tax rules, and both will keep moving forward. Okay. And both will ultimately be good for the Bitcoin community, because if we're going to make this thing mainstream, it maybe needs to comply with the existing laws, or some aspects of it does. Yeah. Bitcoin doesn't have to be one thing or the other. So part of it can be up here, looking good, paying its taxes, and then another part of it down underneath, not paying taxes. Yeah. Not being noticed is probably how.
I
don't want to see anything. Everyone should pay their taxes, but
trying not to get robbed by the government, which is what we're always doing.
Yeah, so. If you look at it that way.
Yeah. So cool. Okay, let's see. Crypto Beatles was in the room. Hit me up with a super chat. Thank you there, Beatles. Appreciate that. Let me find some questions here. Do you have to pay? What is the percentage you have to pay in get? Like if I traded, like let's say I had 1 Ethereum and I traded it for 10 Tron and then it 2x'd, like how much do I have to pay? 50% of my gains?
Not 50%. You'd pay what your income, if you're in a less than 12 months since the time that you bought you have to look at each transaction. So what you bought the Tron for, whatever crypto was, like say you moved Ethereum into Tron, you crystallize that in its US dollar value at the purchase of Tron. Okay. And then when you sold Tron, what that US dollar value amount was. And that, if you made a 2x gain, so you pay on that 2x at your income tax rate. So that would, your gain is your income.
Okay. So there's some people that are wanting some more clarity. We've talked about it a little bit, but can you give us clarity on what constitutes a taxable event in crypto?
Any change of any convertible virtual currency. So if you go from Tron to Ethereum, that's a taxable event. When you move into Ethereum, that's your new cost basis on Ethereum. When you sell that to buy another anything, that's your end sale price, and you're going to pay tax on that transaction if you made or lost money. If you lost money, it counts towards your losses. If you gained, that gain is considered income. Then you start fresh again. So every time you buy or sell anything, that's a new fresh transaction.
Okay, so
that's a taxable event.
So basically, anytime you move your crypto.
Yeah.
What about moving it to a wallet? Like just moving it to your.
That shouldn't be a taxable event. If you're keeping it, it's only when you sell one for another, whether it's dollars or another type of crypto. But if you move your Bitcoin or your Ethereum from one wallet to another wallet, that doesn't create a taxable event. But using any tax software will treat it as a taxable event, because the Coinbase or whatever wallet you're using, they have to calculate their taxes and report that to the IRS. They don't know whether you sold it for anything else, like whether it went into a Trezor or went into Binance. I don't think they know what happened there, so they count it as a sale.
Yeah, so that's why I think,
as far as I know,
that's why I think it's going to be hard in the future when people start getting investigated or whatever, because there's like.
And how did they say I lost my Bitcoin? Mine fell off the side of my boat.
Well, what about me? I got hacked. I lost at the time it was about $2,400 worth of ZRX. Right now, it would probably be worth about $1,200 or so. But that was $10,000 worth of investment, because I had invested when it was much higher, and then it went down. So basically, when I got hacked, I lost $10,000, like just boom. So what? Like, yeah, it just fell off the side of a mountain. But what if you really did get hacked? How do you explain that? Because that seems to be the go-to that everybody would try to say. But then with some people, it is legitimate.
I think you can show them that you were hacked by, calling it a hack, and then putting if they were to audit you, you'd have something to back it up and show them, look, here's a screenshot of my account. It no longer has any funds in it. Here's a news article that, from the site saying they were hacked. And then you would count that as a loss. That would go, if it's long-term, then it would go against your capital gains. If it was short-term, it would go against your income.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think that would be a different category than a trading loss, but that I'm not 100% sure on.
So everybody go get hacked. That's the moral of the story.
Well, no.
No, I'm just kidding. It was a very painful day.
I've worked with a couple people that have had that happen, and it's pretty traumatic. Yeah.
Well, I'm not glad it happened, but I started taking my security more seriously since then, and hopefully that won't happen. But I think you watch my security videos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm dead serious about that stuff now. So
I'm excited to have you on to go through for my audience whenever we can.
yeah, definitely, that'd be awesome. Has anyone asked? I'm trying to understand what this question means. Has anyone asked yet about the wash trade rule in crypto? Do we need to wait 30 days to rebuy if we are harvesting losses? Do you know what that means?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain? Because I don't even really know what that is, actually.
So wash trading is like a term from the stock market, which is where we're getting most of our tax laws. So no one knows how the IRS is going to treat this. The only guidance we have is from 2014 saying this is property. But the fact that it's property and stocks are also considered property, there's a rule in the stock market where you can't harvest your loss on December 31st and buy back into the same stock on January 1st. Then you got a loss, you crystallized it for the tax year, and you were able to write it off against your gains. And then you don't suffer any consequence if you buy right back into it January 1st. So they make you wait 30 days to re-enter the same, stock. So My interpretation is that that would apply to crypto trading as well. So if you sell Ethereum on December 31st, you've got to wait 30 days before you can buy back into it.
Okay, let's say that we do get some kind of, totally new definition of crypto over the next 2 years. And let's just say that the way we're doing taxes in crypto in 2 years from now is totally different than the way we're doing it now. You would still be held accountable. Like if you got audited 2 years from now, you'd still be held accountable for what we have now, or do you think that might be written into new legislation? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the question makes sense. It would be a totally speculative answer on my part of what the IRS. I don't know what the IRS would do for that. I know it's very difficult to get retroactive laws passed. So typically when they make a new law, it only applies on a go forward basis. Yeah. But what I think they're doing with the ICO world and the SEC, it looks like they're only really going after companies that violated post the July 25th down notice. So anyone that did an ICO after that date is who seemed to be getting in trouble.
Oh, interesting.
So if we have a major new notice come out, which they have been asked, that the IRS has been requested this many times, that we need more information on how to handle these taxes. So if some major, and the down notice did not penalize anyone, it just gave us more information.
It was like kind of a warning.
Yeah, it would be nice if the IRS gave us a warning shot and said, here's how we want you to treat this. Go forth and prosper. But and anything after that then is fair warning that here's how we're supposed to do it. But until then, we don't have that. We just have the existing IRA. And even that notice, I think if you look in the very fine wording of it, it says that it's a preliminary notice. So I don't think there's a lot to go on for crypto taxes just yet.
Okay. Let me see.
And I think that's, sorry, I'm taking a long time to get the words out, but I think they'll give us something in the next few years. Hopefully it's something good and it makes sense and it's easy for us to use. And going forward after that, we should follow it.
Yeah.
But up until that date, I think it's just a do your best. Go see a tax accountant if you have a lot of gains. Try and get someone to help you with it. But
and if you have a lot of gains, I would love to have you on the show because you're a unicorn.
Yeah.
Right. So you must be Charlie Lee. That's pretty much it. Yeah. So that's definitely very interesting. I think similar to the ICO stuff, the tax stuff is going to be like if you're intentionally trying to steal, if you're intentionally trying to not pay taxes, they're going to come after you. But like you said, if you do your best, then, I think they'll go much easier on you. So let's see.
Yes. And so the income too, like if you're earning money with crypto or you're mining, those are two things that it should also be considered as income and filed with it. Like I think one of the things that the IRS was so mad about with the Coinbase thing was they looked and saw only 892 people or something, some number around that figure had paid taxes between 2020.
Yeah, I remember seeing it was insane how low the number was.
Like that, yeah. And then Coinbase was there bragging that they had 5 million users. And so there's a big discrepancy there. It's like, well, so that's obvious. And that's what, I think big obvious things are what's going to get the IRS's attention. And I remember at a Senate hearing, the CFTC was there and they were talking about what they needed to really analyze this better. And one of them made a joke that the IRS has to raise. They thought they needed a new budget of 22 million in order to do what they wanted to do with the enforcement side. And sorry if the background's really loud right now. My dad has all his high school friends over, and they're having a good time.
Are they buying Bitcoins right now back there?
Oh God, no! A few of them bought Bitcoin last year at this time when I came for Christmas, and I was embarrassed to even come back to the house. But no one said anything to me yet.
That's good. That's good.
And I think they only bought $100 worth.
Oh. So they've got some pocket change left. That's about it.
Yeah.
Well, somebody asked the question. I think this is probably pretty relevant. We've been talking a lot about taxable events and a lot about, what constitutes when you have to, report your crypto and things like that. What if you're not a trader at all? Like what if you just bought, you bought Bitcoin a couple years ago and then it went way up. Of course, it's gone back down, but it's just sitting in a wallet somewhere and you haven't done anything with it.
Then you don't have any tax liability. It only comes when you sell it.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty cut and dry answer. So there's probably some people sitting on some millions or maybe billions of dollars out there that just don't have to report anything yet.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we get some more here.
One thing I found interesting was the airdrops of how to treat that. But it's just, I think you treat it with a zero cost basis. So if you got airdrop Bcash last year or whenever, the year before, you sold it, like you'd count zero and then minus the sale price minus zero, and that would be your income for it.
But if you got an airdrop and it's still just sitting there, then that's the same thing as if you right. So okay.
If you didn't sell it, you don't have to do anything. If you sold it, you have to pay tax on that amount that you profited from.
Okay, cool. I'm looking at my phone. If you didn't know, I keep looking down and I'm looking to see some questions here. And
same thing with forks. That was sorry. I'm just thinking of what I was really wondering about. Forks, the same thing. Like if you had that Bitcoin ABC versus the SB, I think you treat those cost basis of the new ones as zero. And so if you sold it after, then whatever your profit was, you have to pay income on that.
Well, none of my people like Bitcoin Cash, so we're good.
Well, then they probably sold it if they had any. Like if they originally had Bitcoin, I sold my Bcash, pretty early when I got it, but so I didn't have any of the fork stuff. But if for some reason they didn't sell it out, then
Dude, that was a crazy day when Bcash got on Coinbase, wasn't it? That was an insane day. Yeah. God, that was nuts. You remember it went all the way up to like $8,000 on Coinbase, but
I was trying to sell.
They put a freeze on it or something, right?
Yeah, you couldn't sell it. And I think there was some insider trading business going
on. Okay, let's see. Here's a question. Are there any tools that you could recommend for people that need to sort out their tax situations, or maybe some references where they can go kind of try to figure it out, or anything like that?
Yeah, there's Bitcoin tax.io, I think it's called, and then cointracking.info. They both, they have the software, but you're going to have to tweak it. Like it's not going to work perfectly if you did a lot of moving between exchanges. But if you have kind of a more basic tax side of things, then you basically just put an API into all of the different wallets or exchanges that you have, and it'll calculate it out. And you should go through it and make sure that it's correct in how it's calculating. And if you have thousands of trades, it's going to be a nightmare. If you have thousands of trades, my recommendation is go get a professional to help you. There's a guy in Tampa named Peter Temko who is amazing. Like he's been helping me with mine and a few of my clients also. There's on Twitter, there's Bitcoin Tax Girl or Crypto Tax Girl,
I think.
Yeah, she seems to be pretty good, and I know a few people that have used her and been happy with her services. And so I think if you're really in a bad situation with it, you just got to go bite the bullet and get some professional help.
Yeah. Is there a minimum payment that they would want? If let's say in that guy's situation that we were talking about earlier, if he had, owed $400,000, he only has $100,000 left, and he works out a payment plan, what does that look like?
Sorry, it froze for a second.
Okay.
I didn't hear the rest of your...
Okay, so the guy who, made $800,000, lost almost all of it. He owes $400,000 tax bill. He's only got $100,000 left. He needs to make a payment plan with them. Like what? How could he get that broken down? Is what I'm saying. Like, do they have a minimum payment that you would have to make, based on how much money you owe, or anything like that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I'm probably going to be in a position myself where I'm going to want to do a payment plan with it this year. And so I'll find out, but I don't know how that typically works. But any CPA probably would be able to answer that. Sorry that I don't know.
Yeah.
This will be only my second time filing in the U.S. because I've been filing in Canada most of the years, and Canada offers a pretty easy way to make a payment plan if you have to.
Because I'm thinking, like, if you have $400,000, even if they want that paid over 10 years, I mean, that's still a lot per month when you only have $100,000 left, you know? So.
Yeah, I'm shocked anyone would have advised him to even file that, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Once again, why you think it may be somebody undercover trying to get answers. That's pretty funny.
Trying to bait everyone in the comments.
Yeah. So, okay, somebody's asking about BitMEX. What about wins and losses on BitMEX? How can you track those? Well, I think in the United States we're not even supposed to be using BitMEX, correct? So
that is correct.
Is that even a relevant question? Like, if you've been trading on BitMEX, like, you probably need to hide it, or you're going to be in trouble. What would a penalty for something like that be? I think you got. Yeah.
We don't know yet because they haven't assessed any penalties for things like that. But I mean, we know a lot of Americans have used VPNs to access other sites without KYCing themselves, and without I can't in good conscience say don't pay your taxes. Like my bar license would get in trouble on that. But if you're not KYC'd, you know.
Well, it's kind of like this. If you've already kind of like committed to doing this underhanded, then you probably just need to stay with that commitment. You know, if you're trying to stay respectable and above board, then you probably wouldn't have been doing that anyways. So, okay, somebody was asking about decentralized exchanges. How do those work with crypto laws? Because I know that. I think it was IDEX got in a lot of trouble. One of the decentralized exchanges, no, I think it was Ether Delta maybe. They got in a lot of trouble, and their founder had to pay like a $300,000 fine and stuff like that. So how could, I guess, the IRS track down transactions through decentralized exchanges? I guess would be the best question to ask there.
Well, the way the IRS gets their information is by the exchange giving it to them. So unless the exchange gives it to them, they have a tough job on their hand to figure all that out.
Yeah.
And on the decentralized exchanges, a lot of the information is not even kept by the exchange, as far as I know. So I think they're going to be hard pressed to enforce on those. But as we just saw, like I've seen Jay Clayton say a few times, he doesn't believe decentralized. Jay Clayton's the commissioner of the SEC, so it's a different governing body, but I'm sure they do all have information sharing agreements. So what the SEC knows, the IRS knows, and vice versa. And so I think the SEC does not believe that decentralized exchanges exist, or that they are any different than a centralized exchange. And that's what they kind of said when
they don't even know what Bitcoin is. So.
Well, I've seen them write pretty good, you know, if you read all their notices and stuff, they seem to have a fairly good understanding. But the CFTC regulates Bitcoin, the SEC regulates all the ICO'd coins. And they said that they do have jurisdiction over Ether Delta. And so that would mean that, you know, the IRS would likewise think that they have jurisdiction over that. So it would be the same as any other exchange in the IRS's eyes. If you made income on it, you owe income tax on it. The question is, how realistic is it for them to prosecute someone over that?
Yeah. Well, and that brings me to another question I wanted to ask you about, because I've researched this and I feel like I know the answer to it. But as you know, the ICO said they were going to crack down on like crypto influencers that were pushing ICOs and things like that. And a lot of the influencers that I know, people that are from other countries, not from the United States, they say, oh, well, I'm not worried at all because I live in, you know, Latvia and the SEC can't come after me at all. Well, do you know, can the SEC come after people in other countries, and how could they do that?
So they can come after them through what's called the Commerce Clause. So if anyone uses the international mails or wires, to engage in commerce with an American citizen, they have, then the SEC can have jurisdiction on them. It's a question of practicality. Like, we did see the SEC go after one broker, which was
Right.
registered in Austria, and they were selling what the SEC deemed to be securities to American citizens. And that guy has not shown up for his day in court in America yet. And if he doesn't, then the SEC can ask the Austrian government to extradite
Oh
him
my
to
gosh.
America to stand trial. But who knows if the Austrian government will go along with that or not, because in Austria, they might not view what he was doing as selling securities. And so it's going to be crypto is so interesting because it's going to pull all these international laws into effect. And it's a matter of whether the SEC wants to fight that fight or not. I think for the crypto influencers, there's enough of them in America that they could, start there. Would be a lot easier
Yeah.
for them than going after the Twitter figures from Latvia.
Yeah.
And with the influencers too, it's how much did they make off their influence.
Yeah.
We saw the ones with Floyd Mayweather and DJ Khaled. They made, I think, 150 grand and 300 grand.
Yeah.
Like, Floyd got 300 grand. Those were probably some of the top paid influencers that we've seen so far. So the other influencers, if they made 10 grand off putting some tweets out and they live in Latvia, is it worth the SEC's time and energy to go prosecute that person, make them come to America to stand trial for it? It seems far-fetched to me.
Well,
it's possible.
There is someone in America who I know got paid $200,000 for a deal with a company. He later came out and apologized. He said he did it. I'm waiting to see if the apology will be good enough, because I don't know. I don't know if it will.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. Maybe some people know what I'm talking about, but
I think the SEC likes cooperation too, as do a lot of government agencies. So if that person goes to the SEC and kind of asks for forgiveness now, says, I didn't know my tweets were considered security promotion, here's what happened, he might have to give his 200 grand back. But that could be an option. That's kind of what they're saying.
Probably not worth quite as much now.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's another question. It's like, with all of this, are we doing the value that it was at the time or the value that it is now? Because it's, a lot lower.
Yeah, I know. And it's so crazy that they're, they're going to want people to pay money they don't have, So, and especially because the space is just so new. Like, everything's so new here. And like this whole conversation that we've had, it really just drives home to me the point of like how much we still have to go in crypto to become mainstream and things like that. But it also speaks to the fact that the SEC, the CFTC, the IRS, how heavily invested they are into these issues. Like, to me, that shows the future of crypto right there. If they thought this was insignificant, or it was going to go away, or Bitcoin was going to go to zero, they would not be putting this much time and energy into it, because the amount of money that the IRS say has lost over the last 3 or 4 years from people not doing their taxes, like, it's a drop in the bucket to what kind of money they're going to get in the future when they get the regulation correct. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I agree with everything you just said. Yeah.
Yeah. Your dad agreed too. I heard him yell. Yeah. He said, hey, you turn back on. He was like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you're dang right. I thought so. So yeah, there's definitely a huge future, coming for crypto. And to me, like how there's people out there that say it can go to zero, or it's a fad, or it's a bubble, whatever it is. It's just so silly to me. Like, can you not see where the regulation is going? Can you not see that we have so many people from like big fintech companies coming over to the crypto? CEOs of other kinds of companies coming over to crypto. This is where the future is. So let me see here. We have this question. What if trades were too hard to track? Okay, hold on. I'm trying to phrase this right. Basically, what this guy is trying to say, Rohan is a BitSquad member. He's trying to say, like, if you wanted to give someone a gift for crypto, and I think maybe you mentioned something about this on Twitter recently, or somebody I know did. But if you want to give someone crypto as a gift, what does that look like when it comes to taxes?
So that's also another really interesting question, because you can gift 15 grand in our current tax law, and you don't pay tax on it, and the receiver does not pay tax on it. But how do they know who I'm gifting to? Can't I gift to myself and say that I gifted to someone?
Yeah.
Because that person doesn't have to record it as income. So I think they haven't ironed out a lot of this for crypto, because easily you can claim that you get. I don't recommend anyone do that. Well, I'm not making any recommendations here, but how would the IRS know who received your gift if you're writing off the 15 grand? I guess you would have to say who you gifted it to, but that's certainly something you can do, is gift 15 grand each year.
Okay, now
and that 15 grand gets subtracted from your income.
And so you can receive 15 grand as a gift. Can you receive 2 15 grand gifts, or just one per year?
I think you can give one per year. I don't know if there's any limit on the receiving.
Oh, yes. I'm going to receive lots of Bitcoin this year for sure. You guys know I got a Bitcoin donation address down below. That's a gift if you send that to me. First person to send me $15,000, I will send you a Bitcoin back.
I don't know if the Bitcoin, I don't know if it would be a gift or income with the donations. I guess if it's a donation, it's a gift. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just in memo, make sure you write the word gift. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's see. We are, what about you and have to do? We had another question about airdrops here. We have, obviously some people have came in and left and came back. Can you just real quickly sum up the airdrop rule again for people?
Sure thing. So your airdrop coin has a 0 cost basis. If you sell it within the first 12 months for any kind of value, you have to pay income tax on whatever you made. So if you got your airdrop for nothing, you sold it for $10, you had 100 of them, that's your amount that you're going to pay income tax on at whatever your regular income tax rate is. If you hold it over a year, then you're going to pay a capital gain on it at the capital gains tax rate, which is typically lower than the income tax rate.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think I answered pretty much all the questions that were in the chat there. Do you have any kind of final thoughts you want to give our audience about, things maybe they should think are important in regards to crypto tax or just crypto in general?
Around the crypto tax, if you have any free time, look up Coin Center's crypto tax fairness bill that was put forward last year. It failed. It didn't get passed, but it was a brilliant plan on how to handle these taxes, in my humble opinion. And so I think the more that anyone trying to put bills forward, they should mirror that bill. That was the best bill I've seen.
Okay.
And the reason that it was so good was because it had the de minimis exception for currency of $600. So anything less than 600 wouldn't be taxable. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because to really bring wide scale adoption of Bitcoin, to make it be something people can use regularly on Amazon or on just regular shopping, and allow companies to accept it, the tax rules can't be so cumbersome as they are right now. But if we put a $600 de minimis transaction like it applies for any other currency, that would help out.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Can you just tell everybody one more time where they can find you at?
Sure, thanks. I'm on Twitter at Sasha Hodler, or my website is sashahodler.com, or my law firm's website is dltlawgroup.com.
Okay.
And thank you so much for having me on.
It's been a pleasure. I feel like we definitely got the main tax questions out of the way and answered for everybody. So thank you so much for joining us. Everybody else, BitBoy out.